Okay, so we're doing example taken from the Pearson's Edexcel textbook for D2 of dynamic programming. This is a type of example we see quite often. It's a production planning problem, and we see this quite often in past paper questions for D2 as well. Let's quickly just see what each of these columns represents. Stage is just the month that we're considering in this context. Okay. State, if we look at the example here, it's all about aircrafts and about storage of aircrafts, because we can see here the aircraft are delivered to customers at the end of the month, and there's some key information here. It also says up to 2 aircraft can be held in secure hangars at a storage of £10,000 per aircraft. So the state is the number of aircraft held in storage at the beginning of the month. The action is the number of aircraft held in, not held in storage, number of aircraft that are actually produced that month. Okay. Destination is the number that would be held at the end of the month in storage. Okay, so we've got this at the beginning being state, and at the end being destination. Okay, and the value is obviously what the cost is at that particular, for that which corresponds to that state. Okay, so let's just look at this. We're told that a maximum of 2 can be held in storage. So we've got 2, 1 or 0. Now we can see that the demand is for 2 in June, so we need to make sure that 2 are actually, we can actually supply 2 aircraft. Now if 2 are held in storage, then of course we don't need to produce any. And if 1 is held in storage, we need to produce 1. But if none are held in storage, we have to produce 2. The destination, of course, here is 0, because I think at some point it says there are no aircraft at the beginning of March, and there should be no aircraft at the end of the June delivery, hence the 0 in our destination. All the production planning type problems will have that same structure. Now, let's look at the value for each of these. Now here, it does give a storage cost here of, let's rub all this out for the time being, rub all that off, and it does say a storage cost is £10,000 per aircraft. Okay, so each one of these is going to have a storage of, this one's going to have a storage of nothing, this one, but this one will have a storage of 1. Let's just say our value, by the way, is in 10,000s of pounds to avoid writing lots and lots of big numbers. So that's 1, it represents £10,000. That's the storage cost there. And the storage cost for this one is not nothing, but the storage cost for the top one here is 2. Okay, and there isn't a storage cost for the one with state 0. Okay, now what other costs have we got? We've also got, if any work is done in a month, overhead costs of £50,000. So we've got this one's going to have a cost of 5, and this is going to have 5 as well. Note the top one here, the action is 0 here, so therefore there is no work done, so there is no, we don't have a 5 in that column. So these all total to 2, 6, 5. Now, because these are all states, strictly speaking, we should have, all these are individual states, we should star those. Okay, there's only 1 actual row that corresponds to that state, and so therefore it's obvious that that's the least one, but going on the principle of dynamic programming, they should be starred. Okay, now we're going on to May. We noted there's a demand of 3. Now we can't store any more than 2 anyway, so we've got 2 there, we've got 1 here, and it seems as though we've got we really need an extra row here. And we need a 0 here. Okay. So each of those are our free states, because we can have 2, 1 and 0. In fact, all of the numbers in this column all the way down can only be 2, 1 and 0, because it does say only up to 2 aircraft can be held in a secure storage at that given time. Okay, so we've got a demand of 3. So if 2 are held in storage, okay, then 1 will need to be produced that month. Okay, at least 1 will need to be produced. If 1 is produced, then we've got a state of 0. Okay, now let's work out the actual numbers for that. The whole point of dynamic programming is that we're pulling down a result from before, and because we've got 0 here, and this is our 0 here, we're pulling down the 5 from before. Put in 5. Oh, we don't start it here, but we put in a 5 there. Okay, so now what other costs are incurred here? So we've got the 5 which is pulled down from before. There will be a storage cost of 2, and there is production going on in that month as well, which is 5. So that totals 12. Okay. Now the next action, we could produce 2, in which case 1 is held from storage from before. If that happens, we're going to be pulling down this state from before. Okay, so in other words, this number here is going to be pulled from there. So because we're pulling down the 1, that number there is 6. And yes, there's production going on and there's storage going on. The storage is still 2. There is still production going on, which is 5. So that number there comes to 13. Okay, so of course it does say we can make up to 3 aircraft. If we are making 3 aircraft, then there's going to be 2 held in storage for the following month. Now that means that we're pulling down the 2. Remember, we're working backwards here, but we're pulling the 2 from before, which means we're going to get a 2 star coming in from there. Okay, so that means we've got a 2 from there. Okay, so looking at other costs incurred here, there is still a storage cost from before. The storage cost, because we're still in state 2. There's certainly a production cost, which is 5. But in this case, there is also an extra production cost, which corresponds to, because it says that up to 3 it can be this, but then there's an extra cost of £20,000. So we've got another 2. So adding those together, we will get a number which is 11. Okay, so now when we finish the state, we star the one, because we're looking, this is a minimizing problem, we star the one which is the least, so we're starring the 11. Okay, but we're still in stage May, so we have to actually consider the state 1. i.e. 1 is held in storage at the beginning of that month. If 1 is held in storage, well, remember we have a demand of 3, okay? So we can either produce 3 or we could produce 2. Okay, so we can produce 2 or we can produce 3. If we do produce 2, then we won't be holding any in storage because we need all the 3 to satisfy the demand for May. Okay, so let's look at that. That would mean, if that's the case, we're pulling down, again, we're pulling down the 0, so this 5 star from before, because it's the state 0 that we're pulling down from before. Okay, so then we are going to look at the storage cost. Now the storage in this case is 1. There is production going on, not extra production, so that's 5. So we have a number of 11 there. Okay, and then finally, if 3 are produced, then there will be 1 in storage, which means we're pulling this 1 from before, which corresponds to a star value of 6. So the 6 comes down from before. Okay, so that's a value of 6. Okay, and we are now here, we've got a storage cost of 1 still. Okay, because we've got 1 held in storage at the beginning of the month. We've got a production cost, but we've also got an extra of 2 for the extra work being done. Not that, the one above, the line above that. For the extra £20,000 being done. Okay, so that gives a total of 14. Now we finished the state 1 for the stage May, and we're minimizing, so we star the least of those was 11. There's still 1 state to do for May, which is the possibility that none are produced. Now there's only 1 row here, because if none, if none are left in storage, then all 3 are going to have to be produced that month, and the maximum we can produce is 3. And now if that is the case, we would not have any left in storage from before. So again, we're pulling down this 0 from before. This starred 5 is being pulled down from before. So that's 5 from before. Now here we've got no storage cost, so there's nothing associated with storage, but there is a production cost. Any month where the production is 5, they've got 5, and in this case there's an extra production cost which is 2, so we've got a 12. Okay, now this is a state in itself. The minimum value is only one of them for that state is 12, so we start that value. So now we're going on to April, and in April we have a demand of 2. Okay, we have a demand of 2 in April, so therefore we're looking at satisfying a demand of 2. Now in April we've got obviously the possibility that 2 are held in storage, that 1 are held in storage, or none are held in storage. Now if 2 are held in storage, we could produce none that month because we will have satisfied the demand of 2. Okay, but then we would have none left in storage at the end of the month. Could produce 1, in which case we would have 1 left in storage at the end of the month. Or we could produce 2, in which case we'd have 2 left in storage at the end of the month. Okay, so here we go again. But now of course we're pulling from stage May. Okay, we're pulling from the stage before, always with dynamic programming. So we're pulling the 0 from before. Now there's only 1 0 value, the 0 here. We're pulling that down here to give us our 12 from before. Now in April we pulled down the 12, but there is now no production cost, but there is obviously, we're storing 2 from before. No production cost, no extra production, so that's 14. Okay, now if we produce 1, actually it's 1, we produce 1 aircraft. That's we've got a destination 1, so we're pulling the 1 from before, and the optimum value there was 11, so we're pulling the 11 from before. Now this time we are still storing 2 because we're in the state 2 at the moment. There is production going on, so we are adding on the 5 from before. So that all adds together to a number 18. Okay, now if 2 are produced, okay, if we've got 2 produced, we've got this state here, which means that we've got to pull down state 2 from before. The optimum value there, the start value from there, is the 11 again. So we've got 11. Oh, by coincidence, it's the same number as the 11 from the other state. So we've got 11 from there. Now, of course, we've still got the production of 2. Oh, sorry, the storage cost of 2. But we've also got a production cost of 5. So this just happens to come to the same number, 18. Neither of them is optimum anyway. So we finished the state 2 for the stage of April, and the minimum of those, our start value for that state is 14. Okay, so now we're moving on to the state 1. That means that 1 aircraft is held in storage at the beginning of that month of April. Now we've got a demand of 2. Keep going back to the fact that there's a demand of 2. Okay, now this time it is not an option to produce 0 as it was before. They have to produce at least 1 because we've got a demand of 2. And we've got a 2 and a 3. We can't produce any more than 3 anyway, so that's the numbers for that. Now if they produce 1, then there obviously won't be held in storage. If they produce 2, then we'll have 1 in storage. If they produce 3, then we'll have 2 held for storage for the following month. Okay, so going further on, we can say now that looking at the state 0, because we've got 0 here, we're pulling down the minimum. There's only one of them, the 12 from before. What's that 12 here? Now we note in this month that there's 1 held in storage and there's 1 being produced. So we've got 1 held in storage. Remember, these are multiples, so that's actually 10,000, but we're writing 1. And then we've got the so we've got 1 held in storage, and we've also got a production, because there is production going on, of 5. Okay, so that makes the number 18 there. Okay, going on to the next row, we've got a destination 1, which corresponds to the state 1 we're pulling down, which has an optimum value of 11, which we're pulling down from before, so that's 11. Now in this month we've got storage costs of 1, because there's 1 being held at the beginning of the month. There is production going on, so we've got a +5. So that gives us the number 17. Okay, so then going to the next row, we can see we've got a destination of 2, which we're pulling down from the state 2 before, which has a minimum value of 11. So we're pulling that down here. So we put an 11 from the previous state. Okay. Now we still have a storage of 1. And we have, this time we've got not only production, but we've got extra production too. So that's 11 plus 5 plus 1 plus 2, and that all adds up to 19. Now we've got to come to the end of this particular state for the stage of April, and the least value that we have is the 17, so we put a star there. Okay, so we're still nearly done with April, got one more state to do. That's the state where none are left in storage. Now again, we keep going back to the fact that April has a demand of 2, so it's going to have to at least produce 2, but could produce 3. Remember, can't produce any more than 3 aircraft. If 2 are produced, then we're not going to have any left in storage, but if 3 are produced, we're going to have 1 left in storage. So we've got 0 being pulled down from before. That's the destination, which corresponds to that state. So that means we've got to pull down the 12 from before. Now, in this month, there's not actually there's 2 being produced, but there's no storage in this month. So, but there's 2 being produced, so that means 12 plus 5. Okay, so that equals to 17. There's no other, there is production cost and the 12 pulled down from before, but there's no storage cost here and no extra storage cost, no extra production cost either. So the 12 correspond to what came from before, and the 5, which is the fact that we've got the 50,000 being produced. Okay, right, now we're now looking at destination 1, which corresponds to the state of 1 from before, which had an optimum start value of 11, which we pulled down from before. Okay, so we've pulled down the 11 from before. Now, again, no storage cost, but there is production cost, and there's this extra production cost because of what this is saying here, the 20,000 extra production cost. So that corresponds all to a value of 18. Okay, I do apologise, I starred the 17 before. It is correct, but I starred the 17 before I should have done, because until I got to the 18, I didn't know whether the 17 was optimum or not. Okay, so that shouldn't have been starred when I did. I was just looking ahead. Okay, so we're nearly done. Okay. Now, in March, we note that there's only a demand for 1. Okay, so we're told first of all that there is no stored, there can't be any stored at the beginning of the month. But we could produce 1, which would satisfy the demand for that month. We could produce 2, or we could produce 3. If we produce 1, there wouldn't be any needed for. There wouldn't be any for storage at the end of that month. If we produce 2, there'd be 1, and if we produce 3, there'd be 2. Okay, so now we looking at the state of the destination 0 corresponds to the state 0 from before, which corresponds to that 17 there. Okay. Okay, so we've got the 17. Now, there's no storage cost for any time in March, because there's none being stored at the beginning of the month. So that's 17. Now, we've got a production cost for sure of 5. So that gives us 22. Okay. Right, now looking at the destination 1 here, that corresponds to the state of 1 from before, which has an optimum start value of 17, which we're going to pull down here. Just continuing this process, we can see that we're now pulling down the optimum from before, so that's 14. And in this month there is extra production going on, but there's no storage, which is 21. Okay, and that value is our optimum. Okay, So what does this mean when we reflect back? Well, we reflect back to our start values. So let's look at what we're doing. We've got March. Let this be the production cost. April, May, and June. Okay, so we have here and we know that the total cost is 21,000 because this is our start value at the end. So that's 21,000 as the minimum cost. Is £21,000. Okay, and looking at March, so that means in March we produce 3 because we're 3 here. Now we go back to our start. That actually goes back to the 0 here. We've produced 0 in April. Now going back to tracing back the star from the 0 here to 0 here, that means we produce 3 because that was pulled from before. And then June, we had a state of 0 here, so in June we produced 2. So we've got our what we've produced each month, and we've got our total cost for dynamic programming. Okay, that's it.